My husband used our house as collateral for a secret loan to save his family's failing restaurants. When I refused to use my bonus to save it, he tried to access my personal account. I never imagined I'd be sharing my story on Reddit, but here I am, desperate for advice and support. I'm Lena, 32F, and I've been married to Ryan, 35M, for 9 years. We have 2 wonderful children, Emma, 7F, and Ethan, 5M. From the outside, our life probably looks perfect, but behind closed doors, it's falling apart because of money and trust issues. To understand how we got here, I need to take you back to the beginning. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, the youngest of 3 children. My parents were hardworking people who struggled to make ends meet. Dad worked at the local factory, while Mom juggled multiple part-time jobs. I remember countless nights when dinner was just rice and beans, or when we had to wear hand-me-downs that were already threadbare. Despite our financial struggles, my parents always emphasized the importance of education. They believed it was the key to a better life. I can still hear my mom's voice, "Lena, you study hard. You're going to college and making something of yourself." Those words became my mantra. I threw myself into my studies, determined to make my parents proud. I applied for every scholarship I could find and worked part-time jobs throughout high school. When I got accepted to a prestigious university with a full scholarship, it felt like all our sacrifices had paid off. That's where I met Ryan. He was everything I wasn't: carefree, outgoing, and from a wealthy family. His parents owned a successful chain of high-end restaurants, and Ryan had never known financial struggle. At first, I was intimidated by his lifestyle, but he had a way of making me feel comfortable. We met in a sociology class during our sophomore year. Ryan was struggling with an assignment, and I offered to help. One study session turned into many, and before long, we were dating. Despite our different backgrounds, we connected on a deep level. Ryan appreciated my drive and ambition, while I admired his creativity and zest for life. After graduation, I landed an entry-level position at a tech startup. The hours were long, and the pay was modest, but I was excited about the opportunity to grow. Ryan, on the other hand, joined his family's business, starting as a manager at one of their restaurants. We got married a year later in a small ceremony. My parents scraped together every penny they had to give me a beautiful wedding, while Ryan's parents gifted us a generous down payment for our first house. At the time, I was touched by their generosity, but looking back, I wonder if it set a precedent for financial inequality in our relationship. The first few years of our marriage were blissful. We both worked hard at our careers, enjoyed our weekends together, and started planning for a family. Emma came along 3 years into our marriage, followed by Ethan 2 years later. Becoming parents brought us even closer together, or so I thought. While I was advancing in my career, eventually becoming a senior executive at my company, Ryan seemed content managing the restaurant. He was good at his job, well liked by the staff and customers, but he never seemed to have the same drive I did to climb the corporate ladder. Everything changed about a year ago when Ryan's parents decided to retire. They called a family meeting to announce they were dividing the restaurant chain between Ryan and his older sister, Olivia, 38F. Ryan would get 4 restaurants, while Olivia would manage 3. At the time, it seemed like an incredible opportunity. Ryan was initially excited about taking over the family business. He talked about expanding the chain, modernizing the menus, and even opening a cooking school. I supported his enthusiasm, even though a small part of me worried about the increased responsibility. My concerns proved valid sooner than I expected. Within 6 months of taking over, 2 of Ryan's restaurants were losing money. He started staying late at work, trying to turn things around, but it only seemed to get worse. I offered to help, to look over the books or brainstorm marketing ideas, but Ryan brushed me off. "I've got this, Lena," he'd say. "It's my family's legacy. I need to figure it out on my own." As the financial strain increased, Ryan's behavior changed dramatically. The carefree, loving man I married became irritable and distant. Our conversations, once filled with laughter and dreams for the future, now revolved around money problems and business stress. We started arguing more frequently, often about financial decisions. I suggested he hire a financial advisor or consider selling one of the struggling restaurants, but Ryan wouldn't hear of it. "You don't understand," he'd snap. "This isn't just a business. It's my family's heritage. I can't just give up." Meanwhile, I received a substantial bonus at work for securing a major client. I was thrilled and immediately started planning how to use it, bolstering our children's college fund, adding to our retirement savings, and maybe taking a family vacation. But when I shared the news with Ryan, his reaction was unexpected. "That's great, honey," he said, his voice oddly flat. "So, you'll be able to help out with the restaurants now, right?" I was taken aback. We had always kept our finances relatively separate, each contributing to shared expenses but maintaining our own accounts for personal use. I explained that I had other plans for the bonus, but Ryan seemed hurt and angry. "I thought we were a team," he said. "I'm struggling here, and you're just thinking about savings and vacations?" The argument that followed was brutal. Ryan accused me of not supporting him, of prioritizing my career over our family. I countered that I was thinking of our family's future, that we couldn't pour all our resources into failing restaurants. We went to bed angry that night, and things only got worse from there. Last month, Ryan came home looking defeated. He sat me down and confessed that he had taken out a large loan to try and save the failing restaurants, using our house as collateral without telling me. I was shocked and furious. How could he make such a huge decision without even discussing it with me? I told Ryan he needed to come clean to his parents and ask for help, but he refused. "I can't disappoint them," he said. "They trusted me with the business. I need to make it work." Then he suggested that I use my bonus to help pay off the loan. When I refused, Ryan exploded. He accused me of being selfish and not supporting him. He said that since I made more money now, it was my responsibility to help out. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't the man I married. The next day, I discovered that Ryan had attempted to access my personal bank account, where I keep my separate savings. Thankfully, he couldn't get in, but the fact that he tried was a huge betrayal of trust. Now, I feel lost and confused. I love Ryan, and we've built a life together, but I can't ignore this massive breach of trust. I'm worried about our financial future and the example we're setting for our kids. Ryan refuses to consider therapy or financial counseling, saying we can work it out ourselves. I've started to wonder if I should consider separating our finances completely or even think about divorce. But the thought of breaking up our family tears me apart. Emma and Ethan adore their dad, and I don't want to hurt them. I feel stuck between protecting my family's financial future and trying to save my marriage. The Ryan I fell in love with, the carefree, loving man who supported my ambitions, seems to have disappeared, replaced by a stressed, angry stranger I barely recognize. Am I overreacting? Should I give Ryan more time to fix things? Or is this a sign that our relationship has fundamental problems that can't be ignored? Any advice would be appreciated. I feel like I'm drowning, and I don't know how to save myself, let alone my marriage. First update: it's been 2 months since my original post, and I wanted to update you all on my situation. First, I want to thank everyone for their advice and support. Your comments helped me gain perspective and gave me the courage to take action. After my last post, I decided I couldn't sit back and watch Ryan potentially ruin our family's financial future. I scheduled a meeting with a financial advisor and insisted that Ryan attend with me. Initially, he was reluctant, making excuses about being too busy with the restaurants. But after I made it clear that this was non-negotiable if he wanted to save our marriage, he grudgingly agreed. The meeting was a wake-up call for both of us, but especially for Ryan. When we laid out all our finances, including the details of Ryan's struggling restaurants and the loan he had taken out, the advisor was visibly concerned. He explained that if things continued as they were, we could be facing bankruptcy within a year. I watched Ryan's face as the reality of our situation sank in. He looked shocked, then angry, then finally, defeated. I think it was the first time he truly realized the gravity of our situation. The advisor suggested a few options, including selling the 2 failing restaurants and using the money to pay off the loan. He also recommended that Ryan step back from managing the day-to-day operations and hire experienced managers for the remaining 2 restaurants. At first, Ryan was resistant to the idea of selling. "These restaurants have been in my family for generations," he argued. "I can't just give up on them." But after a long, emotional conversation that lasted well into the night, he finally agreed it was the best course of action. We spent the next few weeks preparing the restaurants for sale. During this time, I also took steps to protect myself financially. I moved half of our joint savings into a separate account under my name only. It wasn't an easy decision, and I felt guilty doing it, but given Ryan's recent behavior, I felt it was necessary. The sale of the restaurants went through faster than we expected. We managed to pay off the loan and even had a small amount left over. It was a relief to know our house was no longer at risk. However, our marital problems were far from over. Ryan fell into a depression after the sale. He spent days on the couch, barely interacting with me or the kids. He felt like a failure and struggled to find his purpose. I suggested he see a therapist, but he refused, saying he could handle it on his own. Things came to a head when Ryan's sister, Olivia, found out about the sale. She showed up at our house one evening, furious. "How could you give up on the family business?" She yelled at Ryan. "Do you know how disappointed Mom and Dad are going to be?" She even suggested that their parents should write Ryan out of their will since he had squandered his inheritance. Ryan was devastated by Olivia's reaction. That night, after she left, he started drinking. It wasn't something he did often, but over the next few weeks, it became a pattern. He'd stay out late, coming home smelling of alcohol. One night, he didn't come home at all. When he finally showed up the next afternoon, reeking of alcohol and looking like he hadn't slept, I had enough. The kids were at school, and I let out all the frustration and fear I'd been holding in. "You need to get help," I told him. "If not for me, then for Emma and Ethan. They need their father, not this shell of a man you've become." I told him he needed to see a therapist and join a support group, or I would be taking the kids and leaving. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to say, but I knew I had to be firm. That seemed to be the wake-up call Ryan needed. He broke down, admitting that he felt lost and scared. He agreed to see a therapist and join a support group for people struggling with alcohol abuse. It's only been a few weeks, but I can already see a change in him. He's more present with the kids, making an effort to engage with them instead of just zoning out in front of the TV. We're also working on rebuilding our trust. Ryan gave me access to all his financial accounts and promised to be completely transparent about money from now on. We've started having weekly money talks where we go over our finances together and make decisions as a team. I'm cautiously optimistic about our future, but I know we still have a long way to go. We're taking it one day at a time, focusing on open communication and rebuilding our relationship. I'm also continuing to keep a close eye on our finances, determined not to let things spiral out of control again. The kids have been remarkably resilient through all of this. We've tried to shield them from the worst of it, but they're perceptive. Emma asked me the other day why Daddy seemed sad all the time. It broke my heart, but I explained that Daddy was going through a tough time and that we all needed to support him. Ethan has been having nightmares, and I suspect it's related to the tension in the house. To try and bring some normalcy back to our family life, we've started having regular game nights and weekend outings. Last weekend, we went to the local park for a picnic, and for a few hours, it felt like old times. Seeing Ryan laugh and play with the kids gave me hope that maybe, just maybe, we can get through this. I'm still unsure about what the future holds for us, but I'm committed to doing what's best for our family. Thank you all again for your support. I'll update again when there are significant developments. Second update, it's been another 3 months, and I wanted to give you all an update on my situation. Things have taken an unexpected turn, and I'm still trying to process everything. For a while, things seemed to be improving. Ryan was attending therapy regularly and participating in his support group. He was more engaged with the family, helping out with the kids' homework and even cooking dinner a few nights a week. We were slowly rebuilding trust, and I started to feel hopeful about our future. Ryan even started looking into new career opportunities. He talked about maybe opening a small cafe or taking some business courses at the local community college. I was encouraged by his enthusiasm and willingness to start fresh. However, about a month ago, I noticed Ryan becoming secretive again. He was spending a lot of time on his phone and would quickly hide the screen when I walked into the room. At first, I tried to ignore it, telling myself I was being paranoid. After all, we'd made so much progress. But my gut told me something was off. Last week, I discovered what Ryan had been hiding. I came home early from work one day, hoping to surprise Ryan with lunch. Instead, I found him in a heated argument with Olivia in our living room. They were so engrossed in their fight that they didn't notice me at first. What I overheard left me stunned. It turns out that Ryan hadn't sold all of the restaurants. He had secretly kept one, the most struggling one, and had been pouring money into it behind my back. He had taken out another loan, this time using his car as collateral, to keep the restaurant afloat. Olivia was furious because she had found out and felt Ryan was tarnishing the family's business reputation. "You're going to drag us all down with you," she hissed at him. "Do you think anyone will want to eat at an Aldridge restaurant when word gets out about your mismanagement?" When they finally noticed me, the room fell silent. Ryan looked like a deer caught in headlights, while Olivia seemed almost satisfied that I had overheard. I asked Olivia to leave, which she did after giving Ryan one last disgusted look. Once we were alone, I demanded an explanation from Ryan. He broke down, admitting that he couldn't bear the thought of giving up on the family business entirely. "It's all I've ever known," he said through tears. "Without it, who am I?" He confessed that he had been dipping into his personal savings and had even sold his expensive watch collection to fund the restaurant. When I asked about the new loan, he looked away, unable to meet my eyes. "I thought I could turn it around," he mumbled. "I just needed a little more time." I was speechless. After everything we'd been through, after all the promises of honesty and trust, Ryan had lied to me again. I felt betrayed, angry, and overwhelmed. The progress we had made over the past few months seemed to evaporate in an instant. I told Ryan I needed some time to think and went to stay with my parents for a few days, taking the kids with me. It was a difficult decision, but I needed space to clear my head and decide what to do next. My parents were supportive but concerned. They had always liked Ryan and were saddened to see our marriage in such turmoil. While at my parents' house, I received an unexpected call from Ryan's therapist. Apparently, Ryan had given her permission to speak with me. She explained that Ryan had been diagnosed with depression and a gambling addiction. His behavior with the restaurant was a manifestation of his addiction. The rush of trying to save a failing business was similar to the high of gambling. This information gave me pause. On one hand, it helped explain Ryan's behavior. On the other hand, it didn't excuse his lies and the risk he put our family in. I'm now faced with an incredibly difficult decision. I love Ryan, and I want to support him through his mental health struggles. But I also need to protect myself and our children. I'm considering suggesting a trial separation while Ryan focuses on his recovery. But I'm worried about how this will affect Emma and Ethan. They've already been through so much upheaval. I'm meeting with a lawyer next week to understand my options. I never thought I'd be in this position, but I need to be prepared for all possibilities. The thought of divorce terrifies me, but so does the idea of continuing in this cycle of lies and financial instability. I'm feeling lost and could use some advice. How do I balance supporting Ryan's recovery with protecting my family's future? Is there any coming back from this level of betrayal? Any insights would be greatly appreciated. Third update: it's been 6 months since my last update, and I wanted to share the conclusion of this chapter in my life. These past months have been a whirlwind of emotions, difficult decisions, and personal growth. After much soul-searching and numerous conversations with Ryan, his therapist, and my own support system, I made the difficult decision to file for divorce. It wasn't an easy choice, and it certainly wasn't one I made lightly. But I realized it was necessary for my well-being and the future of my children. The final straw came when I discovered that Ryan had been lying about attending his therapy sessions and support group meetings. He had been using that time to work on the secret restaurant instead. When confronted, he admitted that he had stopped taking his medication for depression, believing he could handle things on his own. I realized then that I couldn't continue to put my life and my children's future at risk. Ryan's addiction and untreated mental health issues were creating a cycle of lies and financial instability that I couldn't bear to subject my family to any longer. The divorce process has been challenging, especially explaining it to Emma and Ethan. We've enlisted the help of a child psychologist to guide us through this transition. The kids are adjusting, but it's been hard. Emma especially has had a tough time understanding why Daddy doesn't live with us anymore. She's been acting out at school, and Ethan has become more withdrawn. It breaks my heart to see them struggle, but I'm hopeful that with time and continued support, they'll come to terms with our new family dynamic. Financially, I've managed to secure a stable future for myself and the kids. The court ordered Ryan to sell his remaining restaurant and split the proceeds. I've used my share to pay off our remaining debts and start a college fund for the children. It's not as much as I'd hoped to have saved by this point in my life, but it's a start, and I'm determined to build on it. Ryan initially contested the divorce, but eventually agreed to an amicable settlement. He's been granted supervised visitation with the kids, contingent on him continuing therapy and remaining sober. I hope for the kids' sake that he follows through this time. Despite everything, I do want Ryan to be a part of our children's lives, as long as he can be a positive influence. As for me, I'm focusing on healing and moving forward. I've started seeing a therapist to work through the emotional trauma of the past year. It's been helpful to have a space to process my feelings of betrayal, anger, and grief for the life I thought I would have. I'm also throwing myself into my work and spending quality time with Emma and Ethan. We've started new traditions, like Sunday morning pancake breakfasts and monthly adventure days where we explore new parts of our city. It's not always easy being a single parent, but seeing their resilience and adaptability gives me strength. Looking back, I realized that money wasn't the real problem in our marriage. It was a lack of trust, communication, and mutual respect. I've learned valuable lessons about the importance of financial independence and the need for complete honesty in a partnership. While this isn't the happily ever after I had envisioned when I married Ryan, I'm cautiously optimistic about the future. I'm rediscovering my strength and independence, and I'm committed to creating a stable, loving environment for my children. There are still difficult days. Days when I question my decision, when I miss the good times Ryan and I shared, when I worry about the impact of the divorce on Emma and Ethan. But I'm learning to trust myself and my decisions. I know that by choosing to prioritize my well-being and financial stability, I'm setting a positive example for my children. Thank you all for your support throughout this difficult journey. Your advice and kind words have been a source of comfort during the darkest times. I'm closing this chapter of my life, but I'm excited to see what the future holds for me and my children. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that I'm stronger than I ever knew, and I'm capable of facing whatever challenges life throws my way.